Hamza, we'll come back to it. You heard him, I think, the gist of what he was saying there, that this was basically anti-Semitism. I would say it was also, seems to me, incitement to violence. What did you make of it?
To be perfectly honest, I think fair enough if people find it offensive, if people have opinions on it, but I think we've witnessed an avalanche of genocidal intent. You mentioned mass murder. We've seen calls for mass murder across the spectrum from Israeli officials and political figures, and they've carried that out. And I don't think it's received the same level of outrage, the same level of coverage. So I think if people are perfectly honest to feel how they feel, but I don't think it should be cloaked in outrage. I think it is somewhat performative. And I think there is a double standard at play here because, as I said, Israeli officials have queued up. Yeah,
what makes you think it's performative, Hamza? Because I can only speak for myself, but I saw that clip. I was on holiday, coming back from holiday. I saw that clip on Saturday, and I felt genuinely appalled by it.
No, I get that. My point is we've seen, in my opinion, objectively much worse statements. We saw that Gaza will become a place where no human can exist. That was a retired Major General. The emphasis is on maximum damage. That was an IDF spokesperson. Gaza won't return to where it was before. We'll eliminate everything. Yep. That was former Defence Minister Yoav Gallant, the one who called Palestinians human animals. Burn Gaza, wipe out Gaza, don't leave a single child, the Deputy Knesset Speaker, an Israeli MP. And that's just a few out of an avalanche of genocidal statements. And I would point out the importance here is that those set of statements and that, if you want to call it incitement of violence, was actually acted upon. We've witnessed Gaza be incinerated, burned, annihilated, ethnically cleansed. We've seen land theft. We've seen mass slaughter. We've seen what Human Rights Watch call a campaign inching closer to extermination. And that's the point. I think we've spent so much time in the last 48 hours focusing on this when during that time Palestinians have again been subjected to mass slaughter.
But we've also, and I take your point, and I've said many times, I think what's going on in Gaza is indefensible. I think it's appalling. We have talked about it endlessly, perhaps more than any other issue in the media over the last 18 months or so, Hamza. And you're right, we must continue to do so. But that doesn't also mean we shouldn't talk about somebody taking to the stage at the UK's biggest music festival and seeming to demand that people join in calls for mass murder. That matters too.
No, of course. But my point is in terms of the wider picture and how we contextualise it in the sense that we've seen, wall-to-wall coverage across all the media platforms. And I would argue that we haven't seen that level of dedication and coverage and unison, if you like.
You don't think there's been much coverage of what's going on in Gaza?
Accurate coverage, I don't think so. I don't think in terms of what we've seen in the last 48 hours, I think is context applied. We've looked at things reported accurately. We've seen at different perspectives. We've looked at who's been offended, who hasn't, and there's been a rounded picture painted. I don't think, and I think casual observers will feel the same. I don't think that's been the case when it comes to Gaza. I think we've had a very diluted, very sanitised and very whitewashed picture. And as I point out, the difference is that these Israeli soldiers who were on the receiving end of this chant, they are the ones who have made this reality in Gaza hell. They are the ones who have called what the International Committee of the Red Cross said.
So it's fair game for people to call for them to be killed?
I'm not saying it's fair game. My point is that we're looking at who is the brunt of these chants, and those saying, if you like, that military, the army, the Israeli army, that group or that organisation has overwhelmingly decimated and annihilated Gaza.
And so again, I'm not disagreeing with you at all about the situation in Gaza and some of the what seems to me to be likely war crimes that have been committed. But I'm also deeply concerned by what's going on here and the sort of the dismissing, as I see it, of really extreme language. I mean, do you have a problem with what Bob Vylan said on Saturday?
It's not that, but that's the point. It's not whether I have a problem with it.
That's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking you about. Because I agree with you what you're saying. I agree with you about the situation in Gaza. I think a lot of people do. But I'm asking you what you think about those comments.
But that's my point. It's relevant what I feel about the comments.
It's not irrelevant because that's what we're talking about.
But whether I'm offended, whether you're offended, that doesn't change anything.
But do you see any issue with those comments? Would you condemn them?
Again, but this is the problem. You get a Palestinian on and you ask them to condemn. I'm
just asking you as a guest, as a journalist, whether you have an issue with someone at Glastonbury chanting "Death to the IDF."
Well, you said as a journalist, is it not a journalist's job to look at the context, look at things, and then stay away from the opinion?
I'm just asking what you made of those comments.
I'm not trying to catch you out trap of whether I condemn or whether I don't condemn.
I'm just asking your opinion.
And I've given my opinion. My opinion is if we want...
You've given your opinion on the wider issue, and that's fine. I take your point on that.
My opinion
but you haven't given your opinion on those comments.
My opinion is if we want to talk about chants, we could talk about the endless ones made by Israelis.
You're not willing to give an opinion on those comments by Bob Vylan?
I'm not willing to fall into the trap of asking.
It's really not a trap. I'm literally just asking for your opinion. I promise you, I'm not trying to catch you out here.
I get that, but my point is, numerous Palestinians have sat in these positions and been asked to condemn as if it makes a difference.
I'm just asking what you thought.
My opinion on this doesn't matter.
Of course it matters. Point. You're entitled to it, and I'm interested in it.
No, but I can give an analysis. I can look at and give a kind of look at both sides and see. I can understand why people might be offended. That doesn't matter whether I feel offended or not.
Were you offended?
But he never said death to me. Why would I be offended?
But I'm not in the IDF, but I was offended by those comments.
And that's my point. That's reasonable. And I'm offended,
I think we're going around in circles. Hamza, I appreciate your time there. Thank you very much for coming on. Hamza Yusuf, British Palestinian journalist and writer.